What do you want? That is my question for you. And a bit of the theme of the video that I have for you today. So this is a question that actually has come up for me multiple times in the last probably 7 years of my business life and just my life in general, not just business, but through the different seasons of my growth and personal development journey, I've had to revisit this time and time again. And every time I'm in a bit of a like growth spurt, for lack of a better term, it's one that I always have to look at. And to be completely honest, it's one where I don't think I've, for a long time, really been aligned to the things that I've been chasing. And this past year especially has been something that has become pretty fucking clear to me, where I've had certain things in the past, money, for instance, on a pedestal, where I remember times like where my husband would literally, you know, say, I miss you, I want to spend more time with you, like kind of complaining about how much I was working. And I would say, well, just give it another year and then I'll be at, X amount, and then we will have more time. And then we would get to another year, we would get to X amount, and then it would be another reason, another thing that I was chasing. And it was always like chasing, chasing, chasing. And, I had to sit back and ask myself, when are you ever going to be happy, like with what you have? When are you going to ever feel safe? Because there was always this feeling of, I get there and then it's not enough, or, oh, well, I'm making this amount of money, but what if I run out? What if it doesn't last? And then I don't have enough in the account to sustain me, and I've given up my job, my career, without outside of my business and like this thing. So it was always like striving for more, for more, for more. But I've had to ask myself, when is it enough and what do I actually want? And this is something that I think a lot of people don't ask. And also something where I think a lot of people are actually asking for the things that they don't want subconsciously. And I was recently reminded about this, and I actually have a funny story about that one that I'll share too. But I, again, just would encourage you to even maybe pause this video if you want, and then of course come back to it, or you know, at the end of this video, just take a few moments to sit down and ask yourself, what is it that I truly want? What does success mean to me? Because obviously I am a success mentor, success and embodiment mentor, and it's when I talk about success, it's not just money. And for a long time, as I was just talking about, that was for me what it was about. And I made more money than I ever had in my career when I got into my business, and it started happening in 2019, really, where I was starting to get that money, but where I kind of surpassed my income in my career. That I think the first year was 2021, where that just like I made so much more than I had ever made before, and it still wasn't enough. And it was the amount that I had told myself. I remember my mentor asking me, like when I first signed up with her in 2020. Yeah, sorry, I have to think about the timing of all of this of where do you want to be 1 year from now? How much do you want to be making? And first of all, she said, like, where do you want to be or what do you want? And the first thing that came to me was money, because I think so many of us equate money to success, to happiness, to having what we want. So I did put out an amount. And I think I said 150,000. And I ended up surpassing that. But I reached the goal, but then I got there and I was still in lack and scarcity. We paid off like a lot of debt in a really short period of time. Debt that I thought, past me would have thought this is going to take years to get out of. And there's more on those stories uh, later. But so when I got there, it was just kind of like, well, it's not enough. What if it runs out? And just really continuing to be in that mentality. And in reality, what started to happen at that point when I reached the goal and I said I would be happy, and I had told my husband, like, oh, I'll have more time when I won't work so many hours when I get to this point. But then what happened when I didn't honor all of those things that I said. Uh, and I decided to keep going to strive for the next level because I reached the level, and then it's like, okay, well, what's next? And it's not saying you shouldn't have goals and you shouldn't try to keep going. But again, the focus was in the wrong thing, and I didn't honor the words that I said. I didn't, focus on my relationship, on actually enjoying my life and actually being proud of what I had built. It was focusing on what I didn't have yet. And for me, that has been a bit of a theme of my own journey, which is why I wanted to share that, because I think it's something that a lot of people can resonate with. But again, as I had said earlier, focusing on what you don't want and actually creating what you don't want. And I've seen it happen to myself, and it was recently even like brought up and like stared in the face with it, not in terms of money, but just some other funny happenings. And you know, at some point you have to recognize the signals that you're sending to your subconscious and how those are actually impacting you. So for me, it was, again, it's not enough, and that started to reflect back to me. So again, had made more money than ever before, had paid off all of our debts. So literally, like our expenses at the time, I think um, we were doing the RV thing at that point, and our like rent every month was probably around 500 US dollars. So like our bills were really low too, and then we were making, you know, multiple five figures per month, and yet it I started to, I don't even know what started to happen in terms of bills. And then I started like, oh, I need to invest in another mentor to get me to the next level. And don't get me wrong, I love, like, I'm someone who is a lifelong learner and really appreciate having mentorship ongoing, but for the right reasons and from the right energy, which is something I think a lot of people, and myself included, don't always do, or didn't past me, wasn't always doing. So it's like, what is the next thing, the next thing, the next thing? And I do recall my husband talking about, like, when is it going to be enough? Like, do you really need that? And he couldn't understand. And again, I made it about me and like his belief in me and all of those things. Uh, but when I felt it wasn't enough, it started to not become enough. Expenses started to rise again. I started to put things on credit again, spend beyond my means again. And at the time, I didn't recognize the loops, the patterns that were occurring there. Um, but I would manifest the things that I didn't actually want, because those were actually the things that I was thinking. Those are the things that I was saying. Those are the things that were, anchoring into to my subconscious. And even though I would do my manifestations and I would, go to my mentors and I would do the things. Okay, don't necessarily love to do that, but this webcam sometimes gets a little blurry. So anyway, sorry about that. Um, so, I went through this, and to be honest, like, it led me down kind of a really difficult path, and I continued to make really good money for a while and have like honestly some of my highest months where I like made in a month multiple times what I used to make in a year in my jobs, like post university, and but at a certain point it started to slow down, and I had to really face what it was that I had created and what was happening. And again, just recently, I was reminded of a lot of this, which is why I was really, wanting to talk about it. And you know, what you ask for is what you get. And many of you, think that I'm trying to manifest this thing, or I'm going to manifest that, and then it doesn't come. But in reality, what you're actually asking for, what you're actually sending to your subconscious, what you're telling yourself, is what you don't want, and it's exactly what you're manifesting. So, just a little example of this, and this isn't necessarily with money, but I have all sorts of stories again around, well, I told some already, around debt, around making enough money. And again, when you're constantly saying it's not enough, it's not enough, it's never going to be enough. And you're going to continue to manifest that and to bring things up that will actually prove that over and over to you. But the story about like again, I know that I can manifest things, and like some of the things that I've manifested off my vision board, including um like the place that I wanted to live, and I wanted this specific view. It wasn't actually a specific house. And probably a year after I put that on my vision board, we ended up getting this opportunity. Like a friend had been renting this place in the Virgin Islands, and she couldn't keep it anymore. But she's like, it's such a beautiful place, and blah blah blah, and great location and everything. And she wanted to kind of keep it in the family so she could potentially still come visit it. So she had reached out to her friend, who I didn't know, this other person who had the place, and my friend said, "Well, would you want to like go in on it?" Because neither one of us was living there full time anymore, but we wanted to have something where we could go spend time. And I, still had the event planning business there, which technically I still do. I just don't do a lot of events there anymore. And said sure, sure. And I, at the time, like this was all remote, sight unseen, sent me a couple pictures. But when we got there the first time, it was actually the exact view. Well, just slightly down the hill, but from the exact view in my mind that I had wanted, and that was also on my vision board. I could actually see the house that we were living in on my vision board picture. The picture on my vision board had the picture of my fucking house on it. And I didn't even know that house existed when I put that picture on there. So like that's just one example of the things that I've created. And another one was, and like manifested, another one was I had pictures of different hotels, specifically really like beautiful pools, because I love pools, bathtubs, showers, whatever, that are amazing for whatever reason. Water, I'm Pisces. Um, and last year when I was in Bali, and I hadn't booked a stay for after the like retreat stuff, I was looking for hotels, and I saw one. I'm like, this one looks really familiar. And I realized when I was looking at the pictures, the one that I booked was actually on my fucking vision board. So, and it had been for years before I even had ever been to Bali, had any interest in even going to Bali. I didn't even know it was in Bali. I just fell in love with the picture, and I stayed at that exact hotel last year. Um, so we can really manifest things, and most of us are looking at the positive and the things that we actually want versus the things that we don't. But recently, when I was in Bali, and we were on the retreat, and we were doing a Bali swing experience, which even if you haven't been to Bali, you've probably seen the pictures, right, of people swinging out over the rice fields. And well, sometimes they do the mirage and it looks like you're over water. Really, you're not. Then maybe they have some that are over water, but it's just a mirage. But and we were doing this experience, and it had been raining. And so we got there was one person before us, and she was waiting for the rain. And I remember talking to one of the attendees and saying, like, I don't even care if it's raining. Really, it's not raining that hard. As long as it's not downpouring, then I'm okay with that. Like, totally fine. So it stopped raining. The woman before us went. All of the people that were attending my retreat did their experience, and I decided to do it too. And I went last. And I go ahead, and I got on the dress and everything for the picture, and I get on the swing, and the guy pushes me one time, and literally, what do you think happened? The fucking downpour came. Because the thing is your brain can't discern between, like, as long as it's not. They heard downpour. So what did I manifest? What did I create? A downpour, right? It happened. And there was something else, and I cannot remember now off the top of my head, that happened within like a day or two of that. But again, it was something I didn't want, and I said it, and then it happened. And these were just reminders to me of like, look, like, watch what you're actually thinking, watch what you're saying to yourself. Your thoughts are controlling so much of your experience. And you know I knew this, but you get into autopilot and you get into your routines and you can kind of forget those things. And, early on in my business, I was doing affirmations. I was doing a lot of those things. And then, of course, people say, well, it's more than mindset, man. Um, Affirmations don't matter and blah, blah, blah. Well, to a point they do because they help you to change the way you think and whether it's affirmations or something else. But when you have those thoughts, again, just I don't want this. When you ask for what you don't want, when you say the things, oh, well, this sucks because your brain isn't discerning exactly what you're saying. Uh, it can't read your tone, your emotions, whatever. But when you're saying, I don't want something, or I want something, or blah, 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 whatever, that is what's happening. And it can be like that. And again, I just had this reminder. So I wanted to again just share that because I think that sometimes like we get into these big journeys, these big, healing crises, this big focus on what I need to fix about myself. And the thing is there's nothing wrong with any of us. There's like, yes, we all have trauma. Yes, we all have conditioning. We all have inner child crap that we need to clean up. But at our core, like those aren't the things that are generally stopping us from having what we want. They impact our ability to create what we want because a lot of times they're controlling our thoughts, right? And our subconscious. And it the magic actually happens when we can reprogram that, when we can shift our thoughts to match what we actually want and to make those our predominant underlying thoughts, the signals that we're sending to our mind, to our body, etc. And actually just reprogramming that. So coming back to what I asked you from the beginning, what do you want? What do you actually want to create? And I talk a lot about being unfiltered and authenticity and all of those things. And I 100% believe that, a big reason of why we aren't getting what we want is because of those things. But it's tied, these things are tied together in terms of, what we're creating for ourselves. So asking yourself, what is it that you want? And where are you sending the signals to yourself that you can't have it? How are you talking, how you're acting, how you're presenting yourself, what you believe, what you're complaining about in your life. And this is something that, again, for me, like, love my family, love, all of that. But positive thinking wasn't a focus of what we were doing. We didn't understand when growing up how these things were that we were thinking, saying, etc. Even like down to like money doesn't grow on trees or you can't have that. How much that would condition us as we got older, and that's where your inner child and all of that stuff really comes in because it does control the conditioning. But asking yourself, what do you want, and where are you actually sending the signals to yourself, to your mind, to your body that are going directly against what it is that you're actually trying to create for yourself. So that's the question I want to leave you with. And if you don't know what you want, that's a whole nother thing, and that is something too that we sometimes have to get clear on. And as you go through, your journey, your growth, that might shift, that might change. But really, when you come back to it, a lot of times it's the same thing. But you need to focus on the right things. So I started this with a big money story and everything too. And those things are linked, but money isn't everything. So what is it? What is the life? What is the picture of what you want? And are you actually honoring the things that you want, or are you just continuing to loop and try to tell yourself it's not good enough, it's not enough, this isn't the right thing, and that's the signal that you're actually sending. And so that's what needs to stop, that's what needs to change. And if you'd like my support with that, we definitely will do this type of work inside my mastermind, 100% inside the retreats that I'm hosting in the coming year, of course, as well as in my private mentorship. So you can send me a message. Link will be below in the description for how to connect with me over on Facebook. Send me a message there. Or please do join me inside the Unleashed and Authentically Expressed community over on Telegram, where we have some of these deeper conversations. And really, it is a safe space where you can meet like-minded people. I used to say women, but it is not only women in there. We do have a few very brave men that are on the same path, the same journey, because community really and the collective energy as we grow is so, so important in this. So we're going to have some more of those conversations at a deeper level over there. So join us, and I will talk to you soon.